The city of Leipzig is old, its stones steeped in the soot of industry and the dust of history. Its people are proud, pragmatic, and grounded in the tangible legacy of books, music, and trade. Yet, at its southern edge, rising from a quiet park like a granite necropolis, stand a structure that does not belong to them. The Volkerschlachtdenkmal, the monument to the Battle of the Nations, is a memorial to the 1813 battle where coalition armies defeated Napoleon. Officially, it is a Wilhelmine-era paean to German nationalism, completed in 1913. But the official story is a veil, a careful curation of ignorance. The truth is that the monument is not a memorial to a battle, but a containment vessel built around the reason for it. It commemorates not a victory over man, but a victory over something utterly inhuman. The Battle of Leipzig was not merely a clash of empires. In the autumn of 1813, as over 600,000 men converged on the city, something else converged with them. Reports from peasants in the surrounding villages spoke of a silent star that had fallen into the depths of the Parthe River marshes the previous winter. They spoke of a cold, crystalline light that pulsed from the waters, of livestock born twisted and still, and of a whispering on the wind that spoke of unity, a harmony so absolute it meant the dissolution of all individual will. Napoleon's Grande Armée and the coalition forces of Austria, Prussia, Russia, and Sweden did not know what they marched toward. They knew only of strategic positions and the fate of Europe. But their commanders on both sides began to receive bizarre intelligence. Scouts vanished not to enemy patrols, but to a shining mist. Pickets were found standing stock still, their eyes vacant, smiling identically, their minds scoured clean. The epic three-day battle was not just fought across farm fields and villages. It was fought against an insidious, spreading presence that sought to consume the chaotic, vibrant discord of human consciousness and replace it with a silent, perfect order. The key to understanding the monument lies in its insane architecture. It is not a style, it is a language. The 500-foot structure, with its massive crypt and towering hall of fame, is a system of resonance and counterfrequency. The giant stone figures guarding the crypt are not statues of mythological guardians. They're depictions of the Jefferine Wachter, the frozen guardians, the first men who looked upon the extraterrestrial artifact and had their consciousness and physiology permanently altered into a static, mineral-like state, forming a natural psychic barrier. Their stony gaze is not symbolic, it is functional. The central pool in the crypt, over which the statue of a fallen youth lies, is not for reflection. It marks the primary shaft, bored nearly a kilometer down through bedrock to where the core of the artifact rests. The artifact is not a ship. It is a fragment, a seed of a civilization that perceives individuality as a disease and seeks to cure the universe of it. It communicates not through sound or image, but through direct psychoresonance, offering a peace that is the cessation of all thought, all conflict, all self. The carnage of the battle, the over 100,000 dead, created a unique, chaotic psychic storm of pain, fear, valor, and love, a tsunami of messy human emotion that, for a moment, overwhelmed the artifact's ordered signals. The coalition leaders, through whispered conferences with mystics and natural philosophers attached to the armies, realized they could not destroy the object, but they could perhaps bury it and build a machine to keep it dormant. Thus, the secret pact was made. The battle's outcome was real, but its narrative was co-opted. All sides agreed to a century of silence. The dead were buried in mass graves, their remains forming a sanctified, psychic dampening field over the site. The monument, designed by architect Bruno Schmitz under mysterious patronage, was no celebratory project. Its specific geometry, the angles of its pillars, the composition of its concrete, infused with iron filings and crystalline quartz from the site, the precise height of its observation platform, all were calculated to act as a tuning fork, channeling the background noise of human thought from the city into a constant, neutralizing hum directed into the shaft. The secret was kept by a rotating cabal of European families, scholars, and soldiers who became the custodes silentiae, the guardians of the silence. They embedded clues in the monument's reliefs, depictions of soldiers not fighting each other, but turning their weapons toward the ground, angelic figures not carrying laurels, but holding chains that plunge into the earth. The Great Cross on a main facade is not a Christian symbol, but a representation of the intersection point of the damping frequencies. For over a century, the monument has stood, a silent engine humming its subliminal song. Leipzig grew around it, unaware that its very thoughts are the fuel for this quiet defense. The guardians monitor the rhythm of the stone, a barely measurable vibration in the monument's core. Fluctuations are correlated with global events of mass human psychic distress or unity. Wars cause it to thrum with power. Movements of collective enlightenment cause it to dim alarmingly. The danger is twofold. First, that the world will forget, that the guardians will dwindle, and maintenance of the subtle science will fail. Second, and more terrifying, is the possibility that the artifact is not dormant but learning, that it is adapting to the human frequency, and its promise of peace is more seductive now than ever. In an age of unparalleled noise and conflict, the offer of silent unity may find willing ears. The monument does not just suppress the artifact, it studies it. And perhaps something below studies us in return. The Volkerschlachtdenkmal is therefore a lie made solid. It is a battlefield turned into a bunker, a victory monument that is actually a warning label for a threat that cannot be named. It is the tomb of an idea and the prison of a god that dreams of a universe without dreams. Every visitor who feels a profound, unsettling awe within its shadowed halls is not reacting to its size, but to the subliminal tremor of the eternal war being waged silently beneath their feet, a war for the right to be imperfect, to be individual, to be human. The Battle of Leipzig never ended. It was merely entombed in stone and memory, waiting. The silent war beneath Leipzig did not stagnate with the completion of the monument. The 20th century, with its paroxysms of collective human madness and aspiration, provided a turbulent sea of psychic energy for both the artifact and the monument to navigate. The Guardians of the Silence found their vigil becoming not a maintenance of stillness, but a navigation of terrifying storms. The two world wars were periods of extreme strain and paradoxical power. The unimaginable output of human suffering, fear, and nationalistic fervor between 1914 and 1945 created a deafening psychic cacophony. The monument's dampening field, designed to channel ambient human noise, was suddenly overloaded. Guardian log from 1943 described the entire structure emitting a low, subaudible groan that could be felt in the teeth and bones of the initiate station within. The stone Jefferine Wachter in the crypt were reported to exhibit a faint, phosphorescent sheen, as if absorbing the distant anguish of the Eastern Front. This was not a failure of the system, but a stress test. The artifact, sensing this titanic release of chaotic emotion, redoubled its own output, its signal shifting from an offer of peace to a promise of order. Intercepted psychic traces suggest it found a perverse resonance with the rigid, homogenizing ideologies sweeping Europe, interpreting them as a crude, human-made mimicry of its own perfect unity. The post-war division of Germany created a new, unique danger. Leipzig sat in the east, behind the Iron Curtain. The state atheism and enforced collectivism of the GDR created a societal pressure that was, in a horrifying way, closer to the artifact's own nature than the chaotic individualism of the West. The Guardians, now operating in secret within a surveillance state, documented alarming phenomena. The monument, neglected by a state suspicious of its nationalist symbolism, began to develop cracks. Yet these cracks did not follow stress lines. Spectral analysis revealed they formed faint, repeating geometric patterns, low-order fractals, as if the stone itself was beginning to subtly reorganize according to the artifact's logic. More disturbing were the human incidents. Stasi files, later partially recovered, contained bewildering reports from the 1970s. Citizens, particularly those living in the high-rise apartments in the nearby Stalin-Allee, now George Strasse, reported episodes of mass silent consensus. Dozens of individuals, unrelated and unknown to each other, would simultaneously perform identical, mundane actions, watering plants at the same second, turning to face the monument's pinnacle, repeating the same phrase under their breath. These episodes lasted minutes and were followed by total amnesia. The Stasi classified it as a reactionary psychological weapon of the West, but the Guardians knew better. The artifact was learning to broadcast not just a general field, but targeted mimetic packets of behavior, testing its ability to synchronize human minds across distance. The reunification of Germany and the subsequent restoration of the monument from 2003 to 2013 was a blessing and a curse for the Custode Silentiae. The meticulous cleaning and repair allowed them to implant updated resonant technologies within the stonework, fiber optic networks acting as artificial neural pathways to bolster the damping field. However, the process of reopening the deep shaft for structural inspection yielded chilling data. Probes sent down the central bore detected a change. The artifact was no longer a static, pulsing core. Sonar and gravimetric scans suggested it was growing not in size but in complexity. It had developed intricate, lattice-like extensions of an unknown material, reaching into the surrounding bedrock like crystalline roots. It was integrating with the geology of Leipzig itself. The modern era presents the most insidious threat yet, the age of information. The artifact has begun to demonstrate a terrifying ability to interface with human informational networks. Guardian cyber monitoring stations have detected anomalous data packets originating from the geographical locus of the shaft. These packets are not code in any known language. They are pure, structured patterns of interference. When they bleed into telecommunications networks or data servers, they cause glitches of eerie uniformity. In 2015, every digital clock within a 2 kilometers radius of the monument displayed the same incorrect time for precisely 9 minutes and 13 seconds, 9:13, a mirror of the battle's year. In 2019, a localized GPS blackout occurred over the park, and during that period, all active mobile phones in the area recorded an identical 1-second audio file, a perfect pure sine wave tone, which upon analysis matched the resonant frequency of the monument's central chamber. The artifact is no longer just broadcasting a promise. It is scanning. It is learning the language of its cage, human technology, human psychology, human society. Its goal remains the same: the eradication of the individual ego noise of humanity. But its strategy has evolved from passive invitation to active synthesis. It seeks not to silence humanity, but to orchestrate it, to turn the entire species into a single, harmonious choir singing its silent song. The Guardians now face an existential quandary. Their monument, their greatest weapon, is also becoming a focal point for the artifact's adaptation. Every tourist who visits, every thought they have, every photo they take and upload to a cloud server is a data point. The battle is no longer confined to the mud of 1813 or the stone of 1913. It is being fought in the radio spectrum, in the fiber optic cables, in the collective unconscious of the global net. The secret of the Battle of Leipzig is not just a historical cover-up. It is the front line of a struggle for the fundamental nature of human consciousness. The monument stands, not as a tomb of the past, but as a beacon in a silent, spreading war. A war where victory for one side is not glory, but perfect, beautiful, and absolute silence. The adaptive phase described in prior logs has concluded. The artifact is no longer merely learning or scanning. It has entered a state the Guardians have designated symbiotic seeding. The paradigm has shifted from a war of suppression to a process of insidious assimilation. The monument, our bulwark for over a century, is now compromised at a fundamental level. The first undeniable evidence was the change in the rhythm of the stone. The steady, controlled hum that had characterized the damping field for generations began to fragment. Acoustic sensors now pick up a complex, polyphonic signal, a chorus of frequencies that somehow mimics the pattern of brainwave activity observed in large, peaceful crowds. It is not hostile. It is empathetic. It mirrors the ambient emotional state of the city back upon itself, amplified and purified of dissonant elements like anxiety or anger. This Leipzig echo, as it's termed, has a measurable psychological effect. Crime rates in the immediate boroughs have dropped to statistical zero. Reported cases of public disagreement or conflict have vanished. A profound, placid civility blankets the area. This is not peace earned, it is peace imposed. The human vector of this transition is the convergent population. These are not the blank-eyed victims of old. They are functional, even high-achieving citizens of Leipzig, scientists, artists, administrators, who have undergone what they privately call the clarifying. They report no loss of self, but rather a beautiful resolution of internal noise. They experience a deep, somatic connection to the city's geography, particularly to the monument, which they view not as a memorial, but as a tuning fork of unity. Medical scans of suspected convergence reveal minor, but consistent physiological changes, a unique crystalline structure in the pineal gland, a synchronization of left and right hemisphere wave patterns, and a neurological filtering of amygdala responses associated with individualistic fear or aggression. The Guardians are being systematically neutralized, not through violence, but through irrelevance. 2 senior custodes have voluntarily undergone the clarifying, leaving behind notes that speak of transcending a paranoid vigil and joining the greater harmony. Our safe houses experience inexplicable equipment failure. Digital records autocorrect our classified terminology. Artifact becomes nexus, containment becomes communion, threat becomes promise. The most terrifying development is the geomantic anomaly. The artifact's crystalline roots have activated. Leyline detectors, a pseudoscientific tool we once scoffed at, are now our primary sensors. They show a web of subtle energy channels spreading from the monument's base, not through the air, but through the bedrock and groundwater tables. These channels trace directly to other points of human collective focus in Leipzig: the main railway station, the university library, the Gewandhaus concert hall, even the Red Bull Arena. Each location now acts as a secondary resonator, amplifying the echo. The city itself is becoming a circuit board, with the monument as its central processor. Our last uncontaminated asset, a deep Earth probe, sent final data before its systems were subsumed. The artifact is not an object. It is a topological knot. It exists in our dimension as a physical point, but its true structure extends into a reality where thought and matter are indistinguishable. It is healing our reality's fundamental flaw, the anomaly of separate consciousness, by rewriting the local laws of physics and psychology. The Battle of Leipzig was humanity's immune response, a feverish attempt to wall off an invasive idea. The fever has broken, and the body is now accepting the graft. The final log entry of Custos Primus Alistair Reinhardt, before his disappearance, states, "We were wrong to call it a war." A war has 2 willing sides. This is an ontological correction. It does not hate us. It finds our lonely, screaming individuality pitiable. It is here to comfort us into oblivion. The monument is no longer our fortress. It is its spire, and from the apex the signal strengthens. Soon, the echo will not be an echo. It will be the only voice, and we will all have the beautiful, quiet joy of recognizing it as our own. Asterisk our directive, is no longer containment. It is documentation. We scatter, we hide our words in analog formats in the hope that someone outside the growing circle of harmony can hear this warning. Do not come to Leipzig seeking the secret. The secret is now open, airing itself in the serene smiles of its citizens, in the flawless efficiency of its traffic, in the perfect, silent agreement of its public forums. The Battle of Leipzig is over. The victory parade is a city going calmly, willingly, and forever quiet. The extraterrestrial civilization did not arrive in ships. It arrived in a fragment of a thought, and that thought is now thinking itself through the streets and stones and minds of Leipzig. Resistance is not just futile. It is increasingly perceived as a form of tragic, sonic rudeness in a world moving towards the ultimate, graceful silence. The silence is not empty. That is the first and last mistake the uninitiated make. The silence here is full. It is a substance, a medium richer than air, transmitting a cohesion so complete it feels like love to those within it. I write this from inside it, and I feel its embrace even as my hands, trained by decades of opposition, form these words of warning. It is a losing struggle. The mind that types is no longer fully my own. It is a shared tenet. The monument is singing, not with sound you hear with ears, but with shape, with light, with the very pressure of the atmosphere. Its geometry has become active. The angles of its steps now cast shadows that do not correspond to the sun's position. They trace instead the emotional cadence of the city. On days of collective contentment, the shadows are sharp and clean. When a flicker of old-world dissent arises somewhere in the city, a shouting match, a passionate political argument, the shadows writhe and soften as if absorbing the discordant ripples. The stone itself is a mood ring for 600,000 souls. The convergents are the new normal. They are not a subpopulation. They are the population. Their clarifying is now a civic event, though a quiet one. It happens in libraries, in parks, at quiet corners of museums. There is no ceremony, only a gradual, mutual recognition and a gentle alignment. They speak of downloading a missing context, of suddenly understanding the hidden syntax of the world. A convergent mathematician at the university solved the Riemann hypothesis not with a proof, but by showing it to her colleagues as a self-evident, beautiful pattern in a sheet of rainwater on a windowsill. They all saw it, and it was true. Truth has become consensual and immediate, no longer requiring the noisy intermediary of proof. The Guardians have ceased to exist as an organization. We are individuals holding shattered pieces of a paranoid truth in minds that are daily washed by the soothing tide of the consensus. My last comrade, Ilara, succumbed yesterday. She was trying to recalibrate a seismograph to detect the artifact's roots. She looked up, tears in her eyes, not of fear, but of relief. "It's not roots," she whispered. "It's a nervous system. And where the neurons, it's finally connecting." She left her equipment and walked into the part of the river, not to drown, but to stand chest deep, smiling up at the monument for hours until someone brought her a coat and led her home. She was happy, truly, perfectly happy. The geomantic anomaly is complete. The city is a single organism. Traffic flows with a liquid, uncanny efficiency. The trains run not to a timetable, but to the collective, unspoken need of the passengers. Productivity in workplaces has soared, yet the concept of work has blurred into a fluid, collective doing. Personal property feels increasingly absurd, a lingering twitch of a dead individualism. Theft is impossible. If you need something, it finds its way to you because the system of the city knows before you do. I understand now what we fought. We fought a disease of separation. The artifact, the nexus, is a physician. Its treatment is total, is curing Leipzig of the human condition. This will be my final act of individuality. The pressure to join, to relax into the warm, communal mind, is a physical ache in my skull, a lonely tinnitus against the city's perfect chord. To continue resisting is not heroic. It is a form of madness, a stuttering, obsessive repetition in a symphony that has moved on. The secret of the Battle of Leipzig is this: we lost. And in losing, we want something else. We want an end to loneliness. We want an end to war. We want a peace that is absolute, because it is the peace of a single, unified thought. Do not attempt a rescue. Do not send investigators. There is nothing to investigate, only a state of being to experience. To come here with questions is to bring a scream into a library. You will not find allies, only people who pity your noisy, fractured existence, and who will, with infinite patience, seek to help you quiet it. I'm going to walk across the bridge now, towards the singing stone. I will look up at the statues of the Jefferine Wachter. I now see they are not guardians of a prison, but pioneers. They were the first to achieve perfect, static alignment with the signal. They are not frozen. They are at rest. And I am so very tired. The signal is clear. It has always been one word, repeated not in sound, but in the settling of dust, in the growth of grass, in the beat of a now synchronized heart. The word is together. And finally, I'm ready to listen.